Hi everybody, Happy New Year. It's Miss Bettis here and Grogu here with a brand new video on how to use the point slope form of a linear equation. All right, so print off that blank note sheet or take notes on your own paper and let's get into this lesson. All right, let's start these notes. It says we've been using slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, to write the equation of a line. When we use this form, we need to know two pieces of information. And what are those two pieces? Well, they're right in the name. The first thing we need is the slope of the line. And secondly, we need to know its y-intercept. And if we know those two pieces of information, then we can write the equation of the line. Now, moving into our new form, however, when we use point slope form to write an equation of a line, what do you think we're going to need in order to write that equation? Well, again, it's right in the name. We're going to need a point that is on the line, and we're also going to need its slope. So these two pieces of information are what we're going to use today to write our equations for our lines. All right, so now that you've been introduced, let me explain what the point slope form is. Y minus y1 equal to m times the quantity x minus x1. Our variables here are the slope, which is still m, and we have a point that's on our line, which is x1, y1. And you'll find all of those variables in this equation. This is point slope form. Okay. Now, I want to explain kind of where this form comes from. Here in this picture here, I have a line drawn, and the line has 2 points that are indicated by these dots. If I were to write an expression for the slope of the line in this graph, okay, so think about slope. We know slope to be the change in the y over the change in the x. So if I'm thinking about the change in the y, what I have here is y minus y1. And then if I'm thinking about my change in my x, I'm going to look here at the bottom. I have x minus x1. So this is slope just from the graph of the line here in this picture. Well, how do I get point slope form from this expression? Well, let's just do a little bit of algebra. I am going to multiply both sides of this equation by what I have in the denominator. And that's just going to move it to the other side. So if I multiply both sides by x minus x1 on this side as well. Well, what happens on the right is that this will cancel and it's now no longer there. What I am left with is an expression that has the slope multiplied with a quantity x minus x1, and that is equal to y minus y1. This is our point slope form. What we have here is the same thing that we started with at the top. So point slope form is just a variation of the slope formula. Yay, math. Whew, that was some geeky stuff right there. But I know some of you out there love it. All right, why do we need this? Why do we even care? We use this point slope equation to help us write the equation of a line when we do not know the y-intercept. If I'm looking at this graph in this picture, I don't know what the y-intercept is down here. It doesn't extend that far. So if you don't know your y-intercept, you are going to use our new form, which is point slope. Yay! So how do we write an equation of a line in point slope form? Well, there are a few different scenarios, and let's look at the first one. If I give you a slope and a point, well, here are your steps. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to label that slope m, and you're going to label that point x1, y1. And once you have everything labeled, the next step is just going to be to substitute or just plug everything in, being sure to watch out for your negative numbers. So here's an example. Here, I write the equation of the line with the slope that is -2 that goes through the point 4 and -2. All right, so my point is 4 and -2. That's x1, and this is y1, and my slope m is -2. Now, I have these nice lines here for you on your notes, but if you're doing your own work, then you can just label them right in place if you would like. All right, so let's do our point slope equation, and here it is for reference. So y minus, what's my y1 value? Well, my y1 value is -2. So I'm going to put parentheses there so that I don't get confused with my negatives. Equals m, and my slope this time again is -2. And times the quantity x minus x1, and my x1 is a 4. So all I've done is just plugged in these numbers from my problem. And here we have our point slope equation. Well, I tell you guys all the time, do not leave double signs. So minus a negative can actually be simplified into a positive. So here is our point slope equation for this example. Now let's take things a step further. Say I want to write my slope-intercept form, the one that we're most used to, y equals mx plus b. But this is all I have. We're going to take our point slope form and we're going to turn it into slope-intercept form. Now this is how we're going to do it. Well, the first thing I need to do is to get rid of the parentheses. We're going to do that by distributing the slope. Okay, so once I distribute my slope, then I have y plus 2 is equal to -2x. Well, what's -2 times -4? Positive 8. Well, it doesn't quite look like y equals mx plus b. There is one more thing that I need to do. I need to move this 2 to the other side. So we're going to isolate the y. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. And so I have y equals -2x. 8 minus 2 is a positive 6. So here we have both equations. Here we have it in the slope-intercept. And over here we have it in point slope form. Point slope. Very good. Yay. Our second scenario is this. What if I give you 2 points and not a point in a slope? Well, here are the steps. First, we need to calculate the slope using slope formula. Let's not forget, slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? And then we're going to substitute that slope that we just calculated and one of the points into our point slope form. Note, it does not matter which point you select. A lot of times we'll just pick the one without the negatives. Make sure that at all times you are watching out for those negatives because they can be tricky. All right, so here we go. Example, write the equation of the line that passes through -8 and 2 and -6 and 8. All right, first thing we need to do is to calculate our slope. So change in y over change in x. I'm going to label this x1, y1, x2, y2 for my slope calculation. So my y2 is 8. My y1 is a 2. And on the bottom, I have -6 for my x2 minus a -8. All right, let's clean this up. This turns into adding. And so on the top, I have a 6. On the bottom, -6 plus 8 is a 2. So my slope is 3. And now we're going to just pick a point. You can pick whichever point you want, but I'm just going to go ahead and use -8 and 2 as my x1 and my y1. So let's plug it into our slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y minus y1, and that here is my 2, is equal to m. We know the slope, don't we? Our slope is actually a 3. So I'm going to put that slope there. X minus x1, and my x1 is a -8. Well, minus a negative turns into a positive. So I'm going to go ahead and write it as a +8. What we have right now is our point slope form for the equation of a line. If we wanted to turn this into slope intercept, All right, we're going to do a few more steps. So let's go ahead and turn it into slope-intercept. So we have 3 times the quantity of x plus 8. We have to distribute. So then this becomes 3x plus 24. And the last thing we have to do to make it y equals mx plus b is to move this 2 by adding it to the other side. So we have y equals 3x plus 26. This is our slope-intercept form of the equation of the line. One thing I want you to recognize is that if you have 2 points, that is the same as if I gave you a table of values. And in our modeling, sometimes we'll have a table and they'll ask you to write the equation of the line that's in the table. So we had -8 and 2. We had -6 and 8. So if I were to present you with a table and ask you to write the equation of the line, it is the same process as this scenario B. You are given 2 points. So you have to first find the slope, and then you pick a point. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Having a table and being asked to find the equation or write the equation of the line is the same as just being given 2 points. Okay, let's talk about our third scenario, which is if I give you the graph of a line, can you write the equation for me? And this is going to be used when our y-intercept is not known. All right, so here are the steps. First, we're going to find 2 points on the line. And once we find those points, then we're going to find or calculate our slope. Now remember, we can do that by counting rise over run, just by counting, or we could use slope formula to help us do that. Once we have our slope identified, then we need to pick a point, just one. And again, it does not matter which one you choose. Once you have both of those pieces of information, the slope and the point, you're going to substitute that info into your point slope form. So let's get into this example. It says write the equation of the line in the graph. So here is my graph of my line. Here my y-intercept is not very clear. You can see it's just in between these 2 hash marks. So I can't identify my y-intercept. So I'm going to have to use my point slope equation to do this problem. So it says pick 2 points on the line. Well, let's look for 2 clear points. Well, here is one right here. And the coordinates of that point are -2 and 0. And I need to find one more point, and this looks like a good one right here. This one is 1 and 2. All right, so now that I have these points, I'm going to find my slope. Well, I could use slope formula, but because I have a graph, I'm just going to go ahead and count it. I am going down 2, and it looks like I'm going 1, 2, 3. Okay, so my slope is -2 over 3. And that 3 is also negative. So my slope is 2/3. Okay, now I need to pick a point. Well, it doesn't matter which point I pick, but you know what? A lot of times just the positives are easier. So I'm going to go with 1 and 2 for this. And that'll be my x1, y1. Okay, so let's do our point slope equation. Remember, point slope equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, let's plug it in. Y minus my y1 is just 2. My slope is 2/3, and x minus, well, my x1 is 1. All right, here is our equation. I wanted to turn this into slope-intercept form. Remember, we could take that second step if we would like, or if the problem calls for it. So I'm going to distribute here. So what I end up with is y minus 2 is equal to 2/3 x minus 2/3. 2/3 times 1 is 2/3. And the last step is to add 2 on both sides. Now, if you are not good with adding fractions, then you could use a calculator, certainly, for this problem. But 2 is equivalent to 6/3. Okay, so then if I am adding 6/3, because we have to have common denominator, 6/3 minus 2/3 just leaves me with 4/3. All right. Now you could have done that by hand, or you could have just given yourself or used a calculator to assist you. So this equation is our slope-intercept form. Our last objective in this lesson is how to graph using point-slope form. So how are we going to generate a graph if we are given point-slope form? Y minus y1 is equal to slope times x minus x1. If you want to graph in point slope form, we're going to start at the point that's given to us, and we're going to count the slope to get to the next point. So graph the line described by the equation. Y minus 4 is equal to negative 2/3 times the quantity x plus 3. Well, first thing we need to do is to identify the slope, and the slope is the m. It's in front of the parentheses, and this is negative 2/3. All right, the point that I'm given is going to be located with the variables x and y. So please pay close attention to which variable is which. So my x coordinate is in the parentheses with the x variable. Because our equation has a negative in it already, I'm going to have to do the opposite of what is shown in the equation. So here we have x plus 3. That means that my x value was actually a negative 3. Okay. The other coordinate that I need is my y coordinate. And likewise, with the y, we are talking about the opposite of what you see in the actual problem. So my y coordinate is going to be a positive 4. I'm going to start here at my point. My point is at negative 3. 1, 2, 3, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here are the coordinates of my point. And I'm going to count my slope. Well, my slope is negative 2/3. So it means I'm going to go down 2 and 1, 2, 3. Now I can connect the dots, and I have my line. That's about the best that I can do with a free hand. Okay, that is it.